Kingdom area of the Denver UFO Society, and we're on a little expedition down into New Mexico today. This is August the 22nd, 1990, and we're in Alamogordo, which is very close to White Sands Test Range, and Trinity Site, a little north of here, and the White Sands National Monument south of here. And this is a very cloudy, overcast day, and we're in the Holiday Inn, which is at the southern end of the town, just before you go out over the viaduct and out of town. With me today is Dan Fry, and this is the reason we came down here, because this is his hometown. He lives at just out of the heart of downtown on Ohio Street, and we went and encountered him at his home, and it's being remodeled. That's the reason we're here in this particular facility today. And Dan has been sharing with us. We had breakfast together this morning, and he shared a little bit of some of what was going on in his world with us. And of course, we're aware of the material that's in the books and the audio tapes, but we're hoping to expand some of that and personalize some of that between the two of us. So I think the best point for us to begin with is to reach back into Dan's life and look at where he got his start in the world, and what type of schools he came through, and where his focus of education lies. So Dan, where did you start on this planet? What town were you born in?
I was born in Aiken County, on the Mississippi River, actually, which wasn't a town. I mean, but the Mississippi River, there wasn't even a road coming into the place where I was born, except you had to take a boat to go anywhere on the Mississippi River.
And this is Aiken County?
Aiken County.
Aiken County, and what state is that in?
Minnesota.
Minnesota, all right. All right, and then how long did you reside there?
Well, until my parents passed away, till I was an orphan, and began to travel with my grandmother, or rather, she traveled with me. I mean, she was taking care of me. I have a sister, and the two of us constituted the entire family.
It was a family unit. And so where did you go from Minnesota?
Well, my grandmother actually was following her son, who was a locomotive engineer, and that was a period when there were very many strikes, and he wouldn't strike, and yet he wouldn't work on one either. So if they had a strike called any place, he just moved on and got a job somewhere else. There were strikes going on all over the country, so he could go to work someplace else.
About what years was that in history?
Well, that was when I was about 6 years old, or 7 years old, because I was actually in the grade school already.
I see.
But this went on for some time because we were only in Minnesota, North Dakota, for a short time, and there was a strike called there. And my uncle, or my grandmother's son, left there and went into California, and we followed him. From then on, I lived in California for a number of years.
What town in California?
Well,
a lot of towns.
Ask me where. There are a lot of towns. Yeah, we were moving around constantly.
I see.
And so I became very familiar with Southern California at that time.
At least you didn't have to shovel snow there.
No, come to speak of it, you mentioned that is interesting, because it snowed the day the train pulled into Southern California.
Is that right? You thought it was going to be that way
all the time? It snowed, and I thought it was going to, well, it was the middle of December.
December, yeah.
And so I thought that was a natural course of weather there. And it was a natural course of the place I had been, because the snow was 7 feet deep where I left.
Minnesota, yeah.
In this case, we got the papers while still on the train, and there was a picture of a fellow who had made a little snowman about this high. And the newspaper people came out and took a picture of it and put it on the front page. And I thought, I was going to put a snowman that is seen on every corner in Minnesota. It was just a common, ordinary thing. That's something strange that they had to take a picture of it and put it on the front page in the paper. I couldn't figure that out. We were really in a different climate.
You'd wonder if you brought your own weather with you.
Yeah, 2 days after we got there, the little earthquake started, and we learned all about earthquakes in 2 days. Yeah. So we got acclimated very quickly to Southern California.
I see. All right, then how did you get the opportunity to advance your education?
Well, I'd always been doing some kind of profitable work, and I hung on to most of the proceeds thereof, which wasn't bad for orphan,
Mm-hmm.
but I've been doing it ever since, so I managed to keep a little bit ahead of the game financially.
That's great. Now, what college were you associated with and your degrees and all that?
Well, actually, the college that I was mostly connected with was actually in the correspondence school, and caused quite a little bit of discussion every time I mentioned it. I didn't mention it very often because it really didn't make any difference anyhow. It had nothing to do with the experience that I had.
Yes.
But it's in London, and also Scotland. The main branch is in Scotland, but this branch is in London.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Now, as time went on, you got a chance to work with the government at White Sands, working with some of the electrical apparatus that was being installed.
Yes, we were
there.
designing instruments for guidance and control and testing of the largest rocket motor ever made. In fact, we tested it in California. Fortunately, the main test was made out at White Sands Proving Grounds because the motor blew, and a 54-pound chunk of stainless steel was later, almost a year later, found in the brush. It passed directly over the head of 6 generals who was in the safe area, and it said who thought they were in the safe area. This piece passed directly over their head and landed a half
Well, that
mile
was
away.
the safe area. The area of the bushes.
Yeah, the area in the bushes was definitely, it would have gone through that 10-inch concrete like the concrete trembled as it was just from the vibration of the motor before it blew.
Oh boy.
And it illustrated the reason why we did this testing out there instead of doing it in California, where we were within a quarter of a mile of dwellings and so forth.
Mm-hmm. So it was because of the remote area, not bothering any public there. Now, it was 1950 when you had your incident there, which is about 5 years after they had ignited their bomb in the area.
Yes.
Was the area at all radioactive or any type?
Yeah, it was still radioactive. I visited with a friend when I first went to White Sands.
Mm-hmm.
I visited and picked up a little of the radioactive material. It was still quite radioactive.
I see. And it was probably of great interest to the ETs. That's the reason they were there, checking out the reduction of radioactive.
Yes. I didn't ask too many questions, but that's probably what it was.
That's probably why they're there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the date that you encountered them was July the 4th, 1950, and that was a holiday.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a military facility. Were they having a holiday at that facility?
Well, yes and no. I mean, military facility doesn't really have any holidays. They do what they have to any day of the week, no matter what the day of the week or day of the year it is.
Mm-hmm.
They have certain things that they have to do. But this was generally acted upon as a holiday. That is, everywhere outside the base was a holiday.
Sure.
So most of the people went out to celebrate a little bit because it was being celebrated there.
Mm-hmm.
But it just happened that I hadn't gone with the first bunch because the car was crowded, and I thought, well, I'll take the motor pool bus later and go into town and do a little celebrating.
Mm-hmm. Now, it was one of those spit and polish days where they probably had big inspections and all the military people had to have their area shiny and clean.
Everyone who stayed there was devoted largely to spit and polish. I mean, there wasn't any real work going on except in our little blockhouse where we were setting up a motor for testing the next day.
Mm-hmm. And then you had an encounter with some generals that you were just looking through the facility, and there you were at work.
Yeah, and I had the floor covered with scraps of insulation and so forth, putting up 1,000 wires. Mm. And everyone left, after a brief look around, everyone else left except one old general whose name I didn't put down, so I don't remember it. Mm-hmm. But he looked around and said, well, it's nice to see at least one person that's working here, and I suggested, we're going to fire this tomorrow, and we had to get it ready today. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of pushing him off, and he realized it, and he left then after saying, well, it's good to see somebody working here.
So then about that time you were about the only person left in the facility?
I was the only one left in the facility, yes.
And so about how long after that did you have an occasion to go outside and encounter the UFO?
Well, I didn't encounter the UFO there. Oh. The whole article, hour by hour, is in the book, and I've gone over it probably 1,000 times. But anyhow, it was after he had left that I had other things to do. And it became very hot, being July 4th is hot
Sure.
at White Sands Proving Grounds. And I went out for a short hike in the open, realizing that it would cool off faster than the little houses that we were in.
At least there's moving air with
yeah,
you moving.
Yeah, and that's where the meeting occurred with the ship.
And this is actually not the White Sands National Monument type of White Sands. This is on the test range, which is out. Is it anywhere near Trinity Site, or is it over?
No, they're quite a ways apart because White Sands Proving Grounds is near the. Well, it really stretches. It really stretches. The area that was taken over really stretched from one to the other. But the Proving Grounds was very near to Las Cruces.
Okay.
Well, it was about 20 miles from Las Cruces. It still is. I mean, they still have the same area. Whereas Trinity Site is quite a bit north and above the other.
All right.
area.
Now, the vehicle. One of the things in relating to your encounter of the vehicle was when you went over to touch it, and later found out that it was probably dangerous to touch it, but your finger would slide off.
Yeah.
And it turned out that that's because of a couple of microns thick protective shield that they have around the thing, and nothing penetrates that shield, so your finger would slip right off like it was on the most polished thing it ever touched.
Yes, this was an analogy to quite some note to me. That's one of the first things I questioned, how it could appear so slippery. And the answer was that it was primarily for lowering the friction between any atmosphere that it had to travel in. And everything was explained, I mean, in a way that I could understand it, except one or two things that it took me several years to understand. So.
Is that the same shield that they use that would, because there's been many incidences of people taking shots at these things whenever they see them.
Yeah, the bullet bounces off.
And if it bounced off, it's just this 2-micron thick shield is all. I always visualized like maybe a foot thick shield of something that would guard the craft.
Well, this shield was strong enough so it didn't have to have depth.
So nothing third dimension is going to penetrate that 2-micron shield then?
Not unless it has extreme ultra speed, I mean, to penetrate it.
I see. All right. And of course, there's some radiation involved in it. That's the reason they warned you to back off.
Yeah. If I could continue to touch it for any length of time, it would have caused radiation, which would have built up in the bloodstream and affected the kidneys.
Yeah, short exposure is not as dangerous as prolonged that would do it. So this continues on the outside of the craft, but you can enter it from below by being beamed aboard through an anti-gravity type field. Apparently, the shield doesn't cover that little hole at the time. And so you described it as a golden light, that if you stand where this golden light is shining, then you can be elevated or up into the craft from that point. About how high above you was it when it elevated you aboard?
Oh, it was hardly noticeably above the ground at all, just far enough to allow the shield to protect the craft. And access could be made from the ground without anything really to go.
How would we describe that craft in its appearance? Was it like the bell-shaped craft that Adamski was photographing?
Well, it was it was an oblate spheroid. It wasn't bell-shaped. It was an oblate spheroid, flat on the top and bottom, and curved.
And about how long from one end to the other?
Well, I added it as 20 feet. I don't know. They say that anything seems to loom larger than normal if you're frightened or surprised or scared or something. So it might have been smaller than that, but I think I figured about 30 feet in diameter.
And it was a remote-controlled shuttlecraft type of thing?
Yes, there was no participants, no pilot.
All right. And then they operated it from outside, but was there any possibility of you messing anything up on the inside by pulling wrong levers or touching?
No, there weren't any levers in the area where I sat. It was just a control, it was just a transportation system. Very simple.
Makes it sound like they were intending to give somebody a ride.
Yeah. Well,
they probably had an eye on you.
If you read the book, you'll find out why.
All right. And then I guess they figured you would tell the rest of the world why let somebody experience this that isn't going to be able to relate it to the rest of the world. And so they were willing for you and anxious for you probably to relate this to others.
Yes, it said so. They said so.
And you had to, being a man of science, you had to have everything proven to you at the time.
Yes.
And even interested in your footprints walking up to the ship, and they set you down within 3 feet of the same spot when they brought you back, which speaks of not perfect technology, but very close to perfect.
Well, I don't know whether this was done deliberately or just casually, but it was done. I mean, my footprints approaching the craft and climbing on aboard the craft were just about 3 feet from the footprints that descended from the craft and left. And that's pretty accurate. I mean, we can do fairly accurate bombarding or traveling in airplanes and so forth. That measure the distance outborne and retrace the difference within a few feet. But this was a distance of some thousands of miles. I mean,
yeah, about 4,000 miles each
yeah,
way.
we wound up within 3 feet of the point of takeoff.
Yes. And it wasn't like it was at an air base where everything's marked off and delineated.
Nothing was marked here. It just took off and came back.
And this is just sand out there. Did it leave a landing ring, type of ring in the sand, in the pattern in the sand?
Well, not that I was particularly noticeable then. I was looking to see how accurate the takeoff was to the return, and when I saw it was 3 feet, I thought, well, that's enough to prove that it wasn't an earthly, because we weren't that good yet. We'd be pretty close to it now, but we weren't anywhere near that accurate on return.
Was the voice inside through some type of sound system like speakers, or was it an ESP type of connection between your mind and the...
Well, I'm not sure. I don't think that an ordinary radio would have picked up the signal, translated it to audible sound in the brain. But that's what it was. I mean, it was explained as a signal that was picked up and transmitted. Actually not very different from the signal that the ear receives and transmits into vibration and sound in the brain.
And you noticed some pressure differentials when you got into the craft a little bit. So they were adjusting atmospheric pressure and all so that it would be compatible with you, so they had to know what a human being's requirements were. So they had every intention of picking you up before they arrived, no doubt.
No, I think so, yes. The evidence seemed to appear that. Or some picking somebody up anyhow. I don't know whether it was me or not.
I wonder if they were just visiting the facility and they found someone there. We better deal with this one.
Well, they had a plan that involved somebody from Earth. I don't know whether it was me or whether it's still looking. I think apparently they were still looking for someone who would be suitable. Not too smart or not too dumb, and above all, who was willing to cooperate.
Someone that could appreciate the technology.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be like a security guard or something like that, because he wouldn't really know what he was looking at. Although we've had a speaker at our Denver UFO Society who was a Air Force Sergeant security guard, and his encounter having been aboard one of these craft. It was a large 300 or 400 foot long craft that they went aboard. And the event that went with that, one or two of the other security persons lost their life over that event due to the response of the rest of the Air Force when they encountered them afterwards. You've probably heard about that type of cases. And I imagine cases like that are quite frequent. Do you ever hear of cases like that much when you were working there?
Well, you don't hear much of anything technically, because you're not supposed to talk about any of that thing. On the base or off the base, you're not supposed to talk. There's a little sign over the exit gate at that time that says, when you see, what you hear, when you leave it here. That was a little sign that was over there.
Well, this security guard had mentioned that he hadn't even told his family and everything, but here he was standing in front of a society of 125 people telling us all about it. So, and it was interesting. So anyway, since then, the individual you found the name of is A. Lan, isn't it? A is in a dash and L-A-N. And did you ever get an opportunity to find out where this individual is from?
Well, you never really do, because where you are from is a question that he would have to land here, take up an astronomy course, and learn our whole new general star catalog to explain where it is.
He's got his own language describing where he's from. Wouldn't be the same as ours. All right, and he is working on this Earth as a walk-in, a person who's occupying a body of a living being on this planet today, in the Cairo area. Is that the case with Elan?
Well, he isn't occupying another body as far as I know. He is. I did succeed in getting him a job as a import-export buyer. And that gives you access to almost every country in the world, because every country has something it wants to buy or wants to sell.
Sure.
And if you can arrange it for them, why, they're glad to have you around, no matter how pleasant or how generally satisfactory the contact is.
So it's like a free license to go anywhere on the planet then.
Almost. That was the purpose of applying for this. It was one of the several jobs that I had a little bit to do with getting him for him.
Of course, the disappointment when you came back and realizing the technology that you were working on was so obsolete that it was almost ridiculous to work on that project any longer. It's hard to give, up till then you were probably as dedicated as a person could be to a project. And then afterwards you look at it as if we're creating something very primitive here. But if you can't build advanced technology yourself, well, you have to go with what's before you. Did it seem to you like they're anxious to share that technology with we on Earth? Well,
I don't know if they were particularly anxious. They weren't reluctant. Apparently, if anyone was interested, anyone cared, why, it's like a fountain going by. You go by it, and, well, if you're thirsty, you take a drink. If you aren't, you just ignore it.
I see. It's more our government that prevents it in order to keep we, the populace, from overstepping our limited bounds that they place on us.
Perhaps.
All right. Now, since you've written a number of books. You've probably written 4 or 5 books on UFO subject.
Well, actually, I have written 6 books. They're not all on UFO subject, however.
Well, one of them more recent. Well, this book he was showing us today, Verse and Worse, is poetry that he's been generating all his life. And the very first poem in here is at age 11. So he's innate abilities along the lines of poetry. So you see, he's not just a technician. He's versified in the aesthetics as well as the particulars of science. And this is more of a hobby, the poetry.
Well, it's just a hobby in that I don't derive any income from it.
Yeah, that makes it a hobby, yeah. But you're at least being published, and that's something. There's a lot of poets in the country who would love to be published, and they're not. And we noticed that Dan is one of the few persons who's meticulous enough to care to rhyme the verse. It takes a lot of work to do that, where other people who would just put prose in there, it's as if just narrating things directly. Not much work involved in that.
Well, actually, in my early youth in school, 4th and 5th grades, I learned quite a bit of poetry by rote. I could learn it by reading it twice. And I noticed that almost all the classic poetry was tragic. It all ended with the death of the participants.
Yes. All the Shakespearean, they usually drag the actors off the stage at the end.
And poems like The Wreck of the Hesperus, was the schooner Hesperus that sailed the winter sea, and the skipper taking his little daughter to bear him company. And it winds up with the death of all aboard. And the last verse is, God save us all from a death like this on the reef in Norman's Wool. And I thought, that is classic. I mean, why does the death of all the participants make a thing classic? Why don't I just take that same poem and reverse it, completely reverse it, without using any words that were the same, and yet make it obvious what you are saying, that you are reversing a poem. And I succeeded at that in the 5th grade in school. And that's the first poem in here. It was written some 40 years ago. And is now being acclaimed as a wonderful poem because it ends happily instead of tragically. And every other, the large poems, the long poems, and I find out that almost all the classic poems are longer than the 20 lines or so forth that are permitted for present. And mine run from 60 to 80, and one's a little over 100 verses. But they all rhyme and scan, and this is very surprising to most poets, because most of them don't bother to do it now. You don't have to rhyme or scan either one. You just write some prose, then you break it up into pieces and put one under the other, and you've got a poem.
But when they've got somebody who does rhyme and scan, they focus and say, hey, this is something special. Yeah,
they give that great account because it does rhyme and scan. Anyhow, it has furnished another job for me, really, because I have to complete some of these that I haven't finished and write some new ones, because now I'm a poet. I mean, everybody's made me that. I haven't done anything to become a poet.
You had expected to hear about UFOs all the rest of your life, but at least there's some variety.
Well, at least I have one, but it isn't in this book.
That's the one about the mushroom cloud.
No, that's really a political one. A warning. That is a warning. It scares the pants off of most people. And I've printed a few thousand copies of those and distributed them among people who are in a position to negotiate peace.
Okay, that like world leaders or
Yeah.
some of the...
I don't make
politicians
anything or don't
somebody
have
like
any
that.
money. I use my own money for all of this, and
Okay.
it is quite a large drain on that income.
All right. So then, an interest right now, of course, to us in current times is the buildup in the Persian area, the Iraq, and the Americans now are increasing their forces to. This is but you always relate any little event like that comes like that with the possibility of igniting a nuclear holocaust.
Yeah.
And
It takes a little occurrence to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We're trembling on the balance every week, every month, every year. That sword of Damocles is hanging over the whole world's shoulders, and they don't.
We all changed our outlook on the world with that Hiroshima bombing. From that point on, we've got a new priority, it seems. Do you think there's any possibility that the ETs are here to prevent any type of situation?
Well, it's usually suggested that is at least one of the purposes of the visitation here. We go other places and do such work in various countries or nations of the world that are too simple to realize it. We do it here and don't realize that if we do it here, somebody else needs to do it for us.
That's true. Because we know that we've got warlike people in powerful places, and any one of them could take it upon himself to initiate a war, like a general or somebody like this, and there will immediately be a retaliation. The whole thing will escalate from that point.
Yes, in hours, not in months or weeks or days even. It'd be in hours, and the escalation could occur before anybody really realizes it. Half of the world would die without even realize what they were dying for.
Yes. Yeah, that's just this is our times. There's talk about, well, if such a situation should arrive, a lot of the extraterrestrials are here to evacuate as much of this planet that needs saving. They're not going to evacuate everyone because a lot of people wouldn't want to go to start with. They'd be all upset with it and probably have a heart attack even encountering a UFO. There's just people who won't accept them as anything friendly at this point after all the 1950 movies where they're horrible monsters arriving. There's an attempt to change that viewpoint and make them seem a little bit more friendly here in more of the recent movies. Does your contact regard himself as an ET, or does he think he's just one being in the universe trying to save some others?
No, he knows it. He knows his background, right? Because he was sent here. He didn't just take up somebody else's body here. He was sent here in a body.
Oh, okay. So he's occupying his own physical form. All right. And I imagine the process of acclimating to our planet took a little bit in that case.
Yes, it did take quite a bit. That's where I came in mostly. Because needed to be someone here to furnish the things that a person couldn't just walk in and say, well, I'm from space, I wish if you'd help me a little bit. They'd help them to the nearest insane asylum, probably.
That's probably. And then there's this little thing called money. I mean, they don't come in here with our currency in their pocket.
No, I had to cash on platinum. Really, at the time that he came, gold was left quite a visible trail. I mean, you had to explain where you got it and where it was going.
It was illegal to have gold.
And it wasn't very legal to have it. But platinum was free. I mean, platinum is easily saleable in small quantities.
I see.
So the first money that actually he received was gotten that way.
And then after that, he's clever enough to make his own income through his own buying and selling. I wonder if there's danger of being trapped into a karmic situation here through greed and all that, through buying and selling with an ET.
Well, there's always a possibility if you do it. If you don't do it, there's no problem. But if you let greed get the better of you, it can be dangerous.
This individual, is he affecting this world's politics in any way that you can measure?
Well, to keep the lid on is the only thing that's actually being done actively, I think, just to keep the lid on. And if I had another 1,000 copies of the other Magi's, the other three Magi's, which I wrote for as a newsletter about 3 years ago. And 9 months ago, when the Brandenburg Gate suddenly swung open at midnight and stayed open, to everyone's surprise and amazement, this newsletter had predicted it 2 years before that, and almost exactly on the date. And I still have a couple of copies of it, which somebody's always trying to get from me, and I keep printing a few more, and a few more, and a few more, and I think those people all print some to explain, because it's the only way there is to explain logically what happened. And it was written 2 years before. Anyhow, it was predicted that it would occur.
During the World War II, Hitler was being backed by a dark side who had UFOs and were saucer-type craft, and were frequenting him in that field or that playing stadium near the Brandenburg Gate. They say that some of these craft used to land upon occasion during Hitler's time, and that there's a good strong possibility that he left Germany at the end of the war. I think they say that they took one of these craft in 2 pieces aboard 2 submarines and went on down to Argentina, reassembled it, and flew into the southern polar entrance. But you would think that, why have to do that? Why not just get in one of the things and fly off? Why do you have to go or assemble it somewhere else? If there's no craft or anything that could to keep up with it, they'd be gone in an instant. Yeah, so anyway, the history of the UFO people is interesting, because you've known a lot of these people that are long gone now.
Yes, I've known almost all of them, because I've made it a point to know almost all of them.
You were a part of the meeting at the Rock out there in California? Or
Yes, I attended all of Judge Van Tassen's meetings.
And he was certainly a dynamic speaker, and we have him on tape. And you probably knew him quite well then in that case.
Yes, I knew him quite well. I think I knew him better than anyone except possibly his wife. That is his first wife. I don't think his second wife ever.
You knew him that well.
In fact, the New York Encyclopedia said he died 7 years before he married her. So
is that right? They got the date wrong.
Yeah.
This is the fun of it.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, why can't they spend so much money on these things? Why can't they hire someone that knows something about it to do it?
You wonder how many dates are accurate in an encyclopedia.
Well, I never opened that encyclopedia again, because I couldn't trust it for anything. Anytime you kill a person 7 years before he dies, right?
Yes.
And leave his poor wife hanging out there unwed, because she couldn't have been wed because he was dead by then.
That's right. Now, he was working on the Integratron, and he kept saying, well, I'm going to be done pretty soon, I'm going to be done pretty soon, but don't you suspect he'd finished a long time before that and was actually using it?
I think maybe he was using it, or was at least testing it before he used it, one or the other, I don't know.
And he wouldn't just test it on himself, he'd probably have another person or two to see if the effect would be equal with them.
Yes.
Did you happen to know anybody that might be potentially friendly enough for him to utilize in the use of that machine?
Well, I would have been friendly enough to utilize it if I had requested the use of it. I never talked to him about using it at all.
I see.
So I thought, well, somebody else can be first. I don't demand to be first on anything like this.
And the purpose of this creation was a life extending as well as a rejuvenation of a person who was more in the advanced years, wasn't it?
Yes.
And was there any other features that this machine would do other than just life preservation?
Well, it was supposed to return the symptoms of youth to some extent to the person who used it.
The enthusiasm and the energy that goes with that age. But it wouldn't change the mind and its knowledge any.
No, I don't think, not that I know of.
So you would have all the advantages of youth. The physical body would even begin to regress back to the age mid-20s or some such. And don't you suspect that this was technology supplied him by ETs who were interested in...
Yeah, I don't know of any other source that it could have come from.
Do you suspect that he might have been an ET occupying a physical body here?
Oh, there's always a possibility. I mean, anything is possible. I didn't notice particularly. I had quite an occasion to study him because I drove him to New York from his home to do some lectures that he had set up. And I also had some lectures. I live more down in town, and when I was driving out to start this trip to New York, I got out on the road, on the highway, and I said, I ought to go see Van Tassel before I go. And my good sense then opposed it here and said, well, that's 40 miles out of your way. Why the heck should you go out and see him? You're starting out for New York, and why add 40 miles to that distance? When I got to the turnoff from the highway, I just automatically turned off. I never thought at all. I didn't think anything. I just turned off and didn't think about it anymore. Drove up to his place and found him pacing the deck, so to speak.
He was waiting for your arrival?
Well, he wasn't waiting for my arrival because he didn't know I was supposed to come. I didn't know I was supposed to go there either.
I see.
Until I started out.
It was looking like a setup from something on the inner plane.
Yeah, well, it was set up all right because he had taxied his plane. He was going to fly, but just in daylight hours, so he could only fly in daylight hours, which would make it about the time I made in my station wagon. I got down and found out what had happened. He'd ripped the fabric on the plane that afternoon and wouldn't have time. He had to not only get it repaired, but then he had to have it inspected after he got it repaired. Being out in the desert there, it might take 2 weeks for him to get it inspected. And he had some lectures scheduled. So I said, well, jump in the station wagon, we'll fly low, but we'll get there about the same time you would have got there. And he threw some sandwiches and stuff in the car and jumped in the car, and we took off. 2.5 days later, we settled down in New York and took place in it. But in a trip like that long, when you're sitting right beside each other, why quite a lot of things are discussed.
You bet.
And I learned quite a bit about George Van Tassel then, and that was the first trip, and I took him to New York again later, another time.
How long had you known each other prior to that?
Well, I'd known him since the beginning of the first lecture, because I talked to him in the first lecture, and he talked to me, and he had announced to the group that I was going to be there before I ever knew the place existed.
I see.
And anyway, then I began to learn some of the mysteries of UFOs, and I didn't know there was such thing 2 days before that, a UFO group or anything. I gave the first lecture there, the first lecture in his first, not the first lecture, but the first lecture in that meeting.
I see, okay. Now, he had probably asked you about Elan and was trying to find out more about him.
Yeah, well, he knew quite a bit about Elan before I ever knew there was such a person. Because he had announced he had had an underground meeting under the rock the night before and had told people that I would be there and speak. And I didn't even know the place existed then.
Well, you see, these ETs have got the ability to travel in time, so they can look into the future, I suppose. All right, well, he's just one of many persons who are long gone now that I'm afraid we're never going to get on tape. We'll never have him on videotape, but at least he had some very good lectures on audio tape.
Yeah. Well, you'll never have him on videotape, I don't think, but you do. We can have him on tape because I have some of his lectures on tape.
And we have a few in our library, too. So at least his words are still with us. Now, there's other individuals still rattling around that we had better get with, or else we're going to lose their contribution. Can you think of any of these that ought to be captured before their information is lost?
Well, perhaps it would be a good idea if you could do it. As far as how many of the original people are left, I don't know. Not more than 2 or 3 of them are left.
Not too many are left, no.
And if there's going to be a compilation of their sayings, it should be done immediately, collected immediately.
Yeah, because a lot of the materials that they've collected through their lifetimes, their relatives are probably not going to appreciate in any great regard, and they're going to get thrown out.
Yeah, well, that's what usually happens. That's the trouble.
It's really wise for the individual to disseminate this information to a safe spot, someplace they think will endure beyond them, and you're beginning to do that already, aren't you?
That's what I'm in the process of doing yet. I have myself many copies of my lectures. I didn't take any of them. Other people took them all and promised me a copy of them, and every once in a while somebody did. They actually sent me a copy of that on tape. So I have quite a few through the years, and they will be, I know they'll be kept after me.
It's fun to listen to yourself on tape or see yourself on video, but you don't learn a lot that way.
No, unless you're very candid and can laugh along with the rest of the crowd.
Yeah. There was one incident that you got a chance to test the awareness of others that you were relating to us in the car. I thought was interesting, and to be at one occasion, remember the photo of the moon? You had been receiving so many people inquiring of, do you have a picture to show us about UFOs and all, that you finally had come up with a photograph of the moon, and you presented this to some organization.
4 different organizations.
And what did you say in the presentation?
I mailed a copy, just a plain copy of a box camera picture of the moon, with a box camera that is not sensitive enough to show the details on the moon. It just shows a round orbit. And I said, I have reason to believe that this is an extraterrestrial object, a photograph of an extraterrestrial. Well, I had a darn good reason to believe, because I knew it was the moon. I knew the moon was an extraterrestrial object.
Sure.
So I sent 4 of these places that advertise how good they are at analyzing pictures. And I said, I have reason to believe that this is a photograph of an extraterrestrial object. What do you think? I got 4 different answers, each positive, each definitive, each positive, each explaining what that thing was. First one said, well, it was a flashlight held over the photograph of a person about 12, or over a person about 12 feet away and photographed. Another one had, well, I don't remember what they all were now. Only one of them was honest. Only one of them said, that's just a picture of a light, and I can't tell you what light it is. And so I looked at these things, and I said, so much for photography.
Right.
So much for
Yes.
I lost all interest in photographic analysis of pictures at that point, because this was an extraterrestrial object, and I had said it was, and they couldn't realize it was the moon. That
Certainly.
The moon is
You're
an,
not saying
is an
it's
extraterrestrial
ET ship
object.
or anything like that. You're just telling me what it is. But, well, what type of evidence would you like to acquire in order to actually be able to prove to people here is something extraterrestrial? What type of evidence do you think would be
Well, I never really cared whether the people believed it or not. In fact, at that particular time, while this person was completing a metamorphosis to an Earthian, it was better if nobody did know or only did believe. So I didn't do anything about it. I just let it go and let people make their own judgment on whatever it is. I did get a few pictures of one, but you couldn't tell it. As you say, these pictures were just round circular lights, that's all. You couldn't tell what they were.
I came up with a good type of evidence that they'd almost have to accept. If you're aboard one of the motherships that carries all the smaller ones, and you took photographs inside the mothership showing the smaller ones, and they gave you one of the smaller ones to fly back, you come back and present the smaller ones and the photographic evidence of where it came from, and you're able to fly this thing around, nobody else can, that would be pretty conclusive evidence.
Yeah, well, you'd have to have pretty good rapport with the people, too, to have them give you one of their ships.
You know, there's got to be a used saucer place someplace where they don't use them anymore. They would still work, but it's the old model, and we don't like that one anymore. And we'd be glad to have one of their older models.
Perhaps.
Right. You know,
it would be comparatively new to us.
Sure, it's brand new to us. It might be their most ancient version, you know, their Model T Ford or something. Yeah. So, but I wonder if they're not worried about us photographing them, and sometimes they'll pose purposely to photograph, like the Edward Meyer type of posing. I think most of the time when we can photograph them, they're posing.
Yeah. Oh, well, always are they at least tolerant with the photography, because they can move at speeds that
you can't
just make a streak on the photographic film.
Yeah, because they can go. Well, there was one photographed on a film in Minnesota that was going all over the sky in a quick zipping pattern, and it turned out that as much sky as that thing filled, it had been going about 357,000 miles an hour, and all it was a streak here and there and everywhere. And so, because of the speed of the film, they could figure how fast the thing must have been going. So that normally your eye wouldn't be able to see anything like that, and they'd still be there.
Unless you had a very fast film, it wouldn't show in the film either.
Right. Well, so much for photographing. A lot of people don't believe it anyway. They'll say, well, it's just the burner of our electric range that you've thrown into the air, which has been a few cases like that.
Well, I was seated in a group discussing the UFO subject, and various people were explaining why they couldn't accept any part of it, because it was different from what they're accustomed to. And I simply pointed out that if you get someone from one of these small backward islands and bring them in here, they'd be he wouldn't be able to explain a streetcar either.
Sure.
In fact, they'd think it was must be something living, because it moves around. So I found that many people are so accustomed to the life they live that they can't imagine anything else. They can't imagine the existence of anything else. And one of these gentlemen happened to work in the same base that I did. He didn't know me, but I was over the base, and he and some other people were working on. He didn't know that, and he was very skeptical of me and very sneeringly at me until he found out that I was his boss, and then he wasn't quite so sneering.
Okay.
But anyhow.
You don't bite the hand that feeds you.
No. So anyhow, I asked him, I said, Joe, if one of these things landed in your backyard, and you walked up and put your hand on it and touched it, would you believe it was there? And he says, absolutely not. He says, I know that it's impossible in the first place, and I'd rather take my word for my belief or knowledge than for anything else. And I said, well, no, you've alienated yourself from life entirely here on Earth. You're throwing away your senses, you're denying the evidence of your senses, and that actually is the first thing you have to rely on. In fact, it's the only thing you have to rely on to begin with.
As a child.
Einstein said in his first book about this first thing that we have to accept our senses. He says, all the knowledge and all of the knowledge and evidence and so forth that we have comes to us first through our senses. They are the only contact with reality we have. We can deny them or we can accept them. But if we deny them, we're separating ourselves from all knowledge in the universe.
Yes.
You have to begin with the safe statement that what your senses tell you are true. Then, after your figures are complete, you can allow what we call good sense to attribute or to contribute
to your decision,
knowledge to your decision on any given case. But if you start out by denying your senses, you're lost at the beginning. You've got nothing to rely on.
Of course, there's always the possibility of things being there that our senses can't sense.
And then about that time, the fellow who was running this program, he said to this fellow, he said, by the way, do you know who Mr. Fry is? No, who is he? He's your boss. that changed everything.
The subject.
If the boss could believe in it, why, he could believe in it too.
Okay. He was just playing the game.
That's all it took.
No doubt you've been attacked by many people of religious
Oh, yes. Well, fortunately, I've also been...
You've always been a very religious person yourself.
Well, I've written a few books on religion, which were very highly taken.
So it's harder for them to attack somebody who is supporting them.
Then they're attacking their own position.
But they'll still do it anyway.
Yeah. Oh, quite often, yeah.
Well, in the world of science, there's these proofs that are allowed. They always say, well, you have to be able to prove it, do it 100 times or 1,000 times in the lab before it'll really be significant. But you're only going to get one shot at the UFO, not too many more than that. So you're not going to be able to repeat that experiment. So it's going to have to, you're going to have to get enough out of it the first time around. And your memory supplies that.
Well, that was a good deal the way the position we were in on these big motors. They usually blew into 1,000 pieces, and we hung cameras on all parts of the frame there to get all the pictures we could, because that's all we had left after the test.
I see. But you'd hate to be aboard any craft that's being driven by such an engine.
Yeah.
And can you imagine the courage that it must take to be an astronaut and be launched from Kennedy or someplace with an engine like that behind you? And some of them haven't.
Well, we were usually within 40 feet of these engines, and as I say, the 54 pounds of hard stainless steel flew almost half a mile from the first test. So you really weren't safe any place. The general who had one pass directly over his head said afterwards, gee, it's nice to be employed in the business that's safe.
That's just like being an artillery barrage in the front lines someplace. And you told him that was a safe place to stand, right?
Yeah. Now, this was a safety area. It was roped in, and they were supposed to stand within that area because that was a safe area.
Right. And then the engine exploded, and the big chunk went right over
their head.
Well, see, it wasn't dangerous where they were standing.
No, it wasn't dangerous where they were standing.
That was the safe zone. Did anybody else get injured?
I was glad to be in a little 10-inch wide blockhouse, 10 feet wide and 10 inches thick.
You wouldn't be outside looking at it.
Pieces of concrete fell off of it. The inside while that motor was running rough for the first second and a half, and then blew up.
Oh, I see.
I knew what had caused it, and I was sure it was going to happen. But these motors don't have a regular igniter. They used well, they started on Anyhow, they were supposed to burn kerosene. The big brass was determined to build a rocket motor that would work on kerosene, and they won't because kerosene isn't even burning. It says 1,000 different sizes of molecules, and they have to start it with, I'll think of it in a minute. Anyhow, they had a little 10-gallon tank. The whole idea of this was to make a motor that would burn that they didn't have to furnish special fuel for. They had to furnish kerosene or JP3 to every base anyhow. And so they could just furnish enough more to run the rocket motors. But anyhow, they found out this wouldn't work, and I knew pretty well it wouldn't work to begin with, because JP3 has 1,000 different sizes of molecule. I mean, the burning is uneven. And anyhow, the ridiculous thing was that the material they had to use 10 gallons of to start the motor is not hypergolic with kerosene at all. And the motor keeps going out all the time. Bing, 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 bing. And the injector, and the fuel is injected to the motor by 500 pounds per square inch air pressure in back of it, so that it drives the motor forward, and then there's a little explosion there, and it drives the fuel back, and the motor goes out. And then the pressure goes down, and the stuff comes forward again, and ignites again, and bang, it makes a little bigger bang because more of it runs in. Then it's that big bang pushes it back to the fuel back even further in a separate holes. I mean, they're in separate holes for the two fuels. And then the fuel rushes out, just like a hammer, like a sledgehammer, it rushes out and explodes out there again and is driven back. And so it just is boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, it blows up, the whole thing
flies
all over.
apart, yeah. Just a succession of booms.
Yeah.
And I was sure that would happen. I don't know why anybody else didn't think of it. It wasn't my business anyhow. I didn't have any.
You're just electrical. You're not
mine
mechanical
was just
engineering.
this was responsible for the fact that the instruments.
You'd think
worked
that the mechanical engineers would have figured that out.
You'd think so, yeah, and I thought so, but they hadn't anyhow. It just blew up. It was the last test they ever made, I think, of that. They were going to use it. They were going to use it to accelerate the Northrop sled, and the fastest man on Earth.
Yes.
He would have been fastest on several other places.
He wouldn't have been on Earth anymore.
He wouldn't have been on Earth, no, but he'd been the fastest man.
Yes. All right. Well, aren't you glad we're beyond technology like that?
Yeah.
If the ETs would share with us, it'd be just fine. But we're going to take war out there into space if we at this point, unless we change our ways.
Yeah.
That's why they're not going to share with us, no doubt. I wonder if we have an opportunity to change our ways. It doesn't look like it immediately, does it?
Well, no, I think we'll have our way. We've got our, we say if we have our way right now. We're having it right now.
Yeah, our way is
having our way.
Increasing our National Guard buildup in the Iraq area. That's our way right now.
Yeah.
I guess that's the reason why this is the Piscean age, the age of dedication to cause. My country's better than your country, and I'll prove it to you. Until we get past this age, which has still got 280 or so more years to go, we're going to keep experiencing this kind of stuff. Then the next coming age will be an age of greater peace and cooperation. So a few of us were trying to push for that a little earlier. Much of your interest in religion and your verse and all is pushing toward peace after having experienced the
well, that's really the thing that I have been engaged in for the past 10 years. I've written poetry that calls for it. I've written poetry that tries to use sense enough so that even people here can understand it.
Sure, yeah.
And,
most of these, I scanned a few poems. I was watching the cat that had been displaced by the marital problem, and the cat was out on the streets, basically. And then someone, maybe yourself, took the cat in and gave him a really nice meal, and the cat was reminiscent of the times when he used to live like this all the time. But it seems like all of the different ones in here really apply to real-life situations that people can relate to. And it's not like you're talking great theory that gets
I'm not talking above anybody's head. I'm talking right down to them.
Right, yeah. So they each seem to be kind of like one of the fables of Aesop's, where it really applies to a situation you can use it in your life. All right,
and also they're proving that somebody else had the same idea except misinterpreted in their poetry.
Okay.
Because you can recognize almost every poem in here as being a redo of some other poem, some other classic poem. Now those people got very famous and wealthy by their poetry.
Yeah.
I will never get a dime for mine, I don't think.
And theirs were all sorrowful endings, and yours
Yeah.
are happy endings for the
Yeah,
most part.
that's right.
See, people don't want to hear happy
Yeah.
endings.
Well,
They want to be terrified.
they want to feel superior because, well, it doesn't happen to me, so I must be superior.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, so the other person was done in because of their greed or whatever it was, then, and they'll feel good in that. Yes. Now you have among your accumulation various video films, that some of which you have taken, photographs you've taken, others people send you, and you keep distributing these around the countryside to whoever asks. And so for the most part, most of the time they're not here.
Yeah.
They're out on the road someplace.
Well, most of the time I have some of them left. I never distribute quite all of them. I usually have some of them left.
Because these are all, well, no doubt being photographed wherever they go. Persons are probably transcribing the film onto videotape or something.
People really send these things to me. I didn't take more than about 2 of them. I did take several because I kept a camera wherever I went. There was always a camera right beside me in the car. I had noticed so many people say, "Oh, if I only had a camera."
Yes.
So I always did. I always did. Consequently, I got quite a few pictures that nobody else got.
Was it a 35 millimeter camera that you had?
Well, I had several. I had a motion picture camera with me, really, that I used mostly 16 millimeter motion picture.
That was in Oregon, that...
Well, it's been every place that I've been.
Because you got some motion picture of a craft in Oregon, didn't you?
Yes.
And that was one that was just slowly rotating and hovering in one spot. And it must not have been an electromagnetic field, because most of the crafts that have that kind of play like this, and that's because of our Earth's magnetic field. But this one was laying there pretty flat and just rotating. So they must have had a different power system other than electromagnetics. Did the beings aboard that craft communicate in any way?
Not aboard any of the ones that I took pictures of, no. Can you shut it off for a minute?
It's too hot?
No, it isn't too hot.
All right, what we're going to do now is something that might be a little bit new on videotape. We had all his senses working at the time. He still retains memory as best he can over the years of those sensual perceptions. So what we're going to do is to try to recreate the event utilizing the various senses, the human senses, that he can still recall, because you're like a walking time machine right now.
Well, yes.
And there aren't too many walking time machines of a UFO.
Not too many left in
There's
there.
younger people that's had it yesterday, that type of thing. But it may be different. In the past, the UFO people and their craft may be different than what they're experiencing today.
Oh, undoubtedly they are, because look at our own technology, how fast it changes. I mean, what is the latest today was old stuff tomorrow.
And if they're ahead of us, they're changing faster than we are.
That's right.
So, yes. So what we're going to try to do then is to go back to the year 1950. It was July the 4th. We've already talked about the facility and what was happening there, the generals coming through. And Dan had finally gotten to the point he'd worked so hard that day that he'd gone outside. So we'll pick it up from that point on going outside. And of course the reason he went outside is because it's hot in that place.
Yeah, it was very hot in the place.
Yes, and they didn't probably have that great of air conditioning.
No, they had hardly any chest space.
And if you've ever been in this part of the country in July, that's hot. Because I've lived in El Paso, and that's not too far away. That's hot. So, all right. So you've got to go outside and get some air, even if it's the same temperature outside. It'd at least be moving air out.
Yeah, it would be moving, and it would feel cooler anyhow, even if it wasn't.
And it's a break. You got to get away from your work occasionally anyway. So, about how far away from the facility did you decide to wander, or were you just wandering?
Well, I was really more or less just wandering, and really I guess I was being directed from somewhere. I didn't realize that. I was just wandering as far as my mind is concerned. But I was going out on the only road that I hadn't, well, it was not much more than a trail, that I hadn't been over in the area, because it occurred to me that was one road I hadn't been over. So I started to hike down this little road, really a trail, and this is when the incident began.
Okay. Now you're out of sight of the blockhouse and everything.
Yeah,
at this time.
yeah, I'm out of sight.
And is this an area where there's actual sand, or is it more like dirt and...
Well, there's sand and dirt there. That's where what are known as the boondocks. The brush grows up in them and slows down the wind a little, and it deposits the sand among the brush, and that grows up. Then it gets bigger and it slows down the wind a little more and drops a little more.
Gets to be about 8 or 10 foot high.
Yeah, they're just about 6 or 8 feet high. I won't exaggerate.
We used to go jackrabbit hunting among those.
Yeah,
And you have to be
yeah.
quick because
Anyhow, we call them boondocks.
Yes. All right. So now you're among the boondocks then, and then what made you become aware that
Well,
you were near
an
something?
astronomical phenomenon. There were two stars, well, there were many bright stars shining. The two of the brightest right in front of me, I don't even remember what they were. I'm not that knowledgeable on astronomics anyhow.
Mhm.
But anyhow, one of the two bright stars suddenly went out, just blinked out. And I couldn't see anything that was shadowing it. And yet I knew there must be something. I mean, stars don't go out just to go out at night,
Yes.
unless it's thunderclouds or something there anyhow, and there was no, it was a clear sky.
Mhm.
So my eyes were riveted on that position, and a little while later another star just went out. And I said, hey, this is something that needs some investigating, because stars don't go out just like that at night,
Right.
especially when you're watching them. And I had been watching these two when they went out, or looking up very frequently. And then when the second one went out, I knew there was some phenomena there that I didn't understand. So my eyes were riveted on that space from then on.
Mhm.
And probably two more just below went out. And I knew then, well, whatever it is approaching me, because the area of shadow is growing. And their approach must be 0-1. I mean, it doesn't move in either direction with respect to me. Because if it did, the first stars would come back on, and the other stars would go out. But
it was really obscuring.
area was obscuring, and we was growing relatively larger because we were obscuring a larger area.
Mhm.
But it was the same area, it's centered in the same area,
So
which
it's
meant the
coming
object was coming directly
on
toward
that
me. Yeah.
area. Mhm.
So anyhow, I realized all this without knowing what it was. Then I could begin to see dimly an area of the sky that was being blacked out.
Mhm. It didn't have any other lights around the outside?
No
or
lights
anything? It was
around,
just a black
no
object
lights at all,
coming down.
just a dark object.
Mhm.
And I had a strong desire to run then at the place, but then the question is, where do you run to? And I'd been working quite a long time in blasting long before I was in rocketry.
Mhm.
And the first thing you learn in blasting is not to run from a moving object until you're sure of its trajectory, because you're just liable to run into it as you are to run away from it.
Sure.
And you can't tell its trajectory while you're running.
Mhm.
That's the main thing. You have to stand still to tell your trajectory. So I stood still. I had a strong inclination to run, but I didn't run. I just stopped and looked and noticed that the object was not really coming quite directly toward me, that it was going to miss me by some 60 or 70 feet probably.
Mhm.
So then I gave up the idea of running and just stood there and watched it land. And it was slowing down as it was, rather than speeding up as an object does when it's falling, it was slowing down, as though it had a mechanism that controlled the speed directly with the distance to the ground. In other words, it decreased as the distance to the ground decreased. So that when it touched the brush, it was hardly moving at all. It was just a little crackling sound as the brush gave way to it. But it did tell me that it was some heavier than air object. It wasn't a balloon or any lighter than air, because it wouldn't have crushed the brush up
Yeah,
there.
'cause those bushes are pretty stout.
Yeah, they're pretty stout.
Yeah.
So I knew then that it was not approaching object of some sort, and I just stood still and watched it settle down on top of a little mound. And I could hear the brush crackle as it dropped, so I knew it had some considerable weight. The knowledge then appeared to me that this must be something. It couldn't have been anything that was made on Earth. It must have been something made somewhere else. And I began to feel a strong desire myself to be somewhere else at that point,
Yeah.
when I realized it couldn't have been made on Earth.
But you've got curiosity beyond the minute.
Well, I have a curiosity that's, like most investigators, there's more
curiosity.
than fear. Yeah.
Mhm.
The idea that the safety or that the knowledge is better to have than safety, or all these old sayings.
Mhm.
I just didn't. They just disappeared at all. I didn't think about it anymore. All I thought was about the curiosity. And I walked almost within reach of the thing, and stopped again and watched to see and listened to see if there's any sound. It didn't. It hadn't approached me. I always said if it began to approach me at that time, I'd probably be running yet. But it didn't. It just and I listened and it made no sound.
Didn't have any glowing heat that you could
Didn't
feel.
have any glowing heat that I could feel. And I
There's
walked.
no lights particularly.
No lights.
Was it reflecting moonlight on
Oh, it was reflective, somewhat reflective, because it was what enabled me to see it to begin with. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to see it to begin with. But anyhow, I walked around it, completely around it, and saw no doors or windows or entrances or exits. And I paused again to consider what I should do. The obvious was to run back to the base and try to get some other people to come out and see this thing themselves. And I started to do it. I'd take a couple of steps when I got a very clear imagination of what would happen if I had gone back and tell them this. And if some of them had followed me, very skeptical. The base was full of such rumors.
Yeah.
They were cited every day by somebody.
Still are.
But those who were cited were universally ignored, and weren't allowed to speak to anybody else about it anyhow, and weren't believed if they did speak to them.
More so in those days than now.
Yeah, oh yes, much more so then. Then even to mention the word UFO was to be laughed at before they even found what you were going to talk about.
It's interesting to note that in 1950 the veil of laughter approach is still being applied. There's thought that has come on since the late 60s when the government has imposed that on all media. But here it was in existence in those days too.
Yeah, oh, it was very much so in existence. All you had to do is say UFO and somebody would laugh, and the nearest person would laugh at you.
I see.
But, more of that stuff. Anyhow, no one even considered how credible it was or anything else. It was contrary to their thinking, so it couldn't have been true. It was ridiculous. So I realized that had happened, and I realized if I went into the base and started talking about something, a UFO that landed out there, and somebody dashed out there to see that there was nothing but a crushed patch of brush where I said a spaceship would be, I knew what would happen to me. And at that time, I needed the job.
Sure.
I didn't have time. I couldn't afford it.
It probably pays well.
Yeah, it pays well, and you don't work too hard. So I was happy to have the book job, and I didn't want to lose it if I could help it. So the only reaction was to just keep still entirely, not say anything that you didn't have to say. Or that if you had to talk, to be as unspecific as possible.
So you decided, well, they're not going to believe me if I do go back and tell them, so I'll just stay here and look at the thing.
So that's essentially what happened. And
you didn't sense any communications going on in your mind, possibly?
There were many things going on in my mind, but most of them were a struggle of beyond credibility. I first thought, well, am I insane? And I couldn't find any other evidence of it. And then I began to think of everything that this could be, but wasn't. And I couldn't find anything that satisfied both of those conclusions. Either they could be, and they might have been, or if they couldn't be, well, then there was no use of thinking about it at all. I think, could this be insanity? Well, I'd never been insane as far as I knew on any other subject, so I couldn't tell what insanity would be like. And thought of all the escape mechanisms that I could and tried to apply them to the present situation, and I found that they didn't fit. So I finally just realized the conclusion, well, it appears to be real, and I just have to treat it as though it were, whatever the feeling is, and play it by ear from there on.
Had you taken any interest at all in UFOs prior to this? Not
especially. I was aware that they were being seen there every day or two, or that somebody thought they were seeing them, because there were reports came in every day or two. Even though they weren't supposed to report these things at all, somehow they came in. And I could see that although none of these seemed to be unlikely, there wasn't any one of them that couldn't be explained logically if you tried hard enough.
Okay.
That most of the explanation for them that was being done were not logical, but they were not logical because no one had tried hard enough to make them logical.
Well, they're trying to tell them it's Venus or some such a thing, which other people began to realize was not true because Venus was moving in that direction.
Yeah, and later, the thing that really did the Air Force in was the Air Force explanation of the 4 stars that people were seeing were especially bright. Then astronomers stepped into the picture and proved that those shown only on the opposite side of the Earth at this time couldn't possibly have been seen.
Right.
Every time the Air Force opened its mouth, it's put its foot in it.
It sure has. Yeah.
And
they don't check into their excuse well enough.
That was what the study was all about. Finally, it was to get the monkey off the Air Force's back. They weren't expecting to learn anything. They couldn't possibly have learned anything the way they went about it.
No.
All they could be is so ridiculous that they take the load off the Air Force base. And they did very, very nicely. Took a load off the
Of
Air
course,
Force.
the Air Force knew it was real all along.
Yeah,
because
well,
they had a lot of crashed
they-
vehicles and everything
Yeah,
else.
but they had to hide that fact. And they couldn't hide it by explaining that there wasn't any such thing, because every time they tried to, they proved themselves wrong. They didn't have sense enough to pick up a logical explanation for them.
And you know, the government's always made the mistake of thinking other people are as stupid as they are.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're not. They're smarter than they
No,
are.
well, you can't hardly be more stupid than
The
Air Force.
government. Yes, that's
is.
about right.
I found that out when I began going to Washington, D.C. to talk with some of these boys, and I found that they didn't know any more than anybody else and weren't ready to learn anything more.
Right.
So you couldn't teach them anything because they already knew it all.
So there's no use in going back to the base, you'd finally
Yeah.
decided. So you turn around to come and check this thing out then finally.
Yeah, I came back and I said I'll have to accept the fact that it probably is real in some form of reality. So I just went to bed and went to sleep. And in the morning I remembered everything about it. And again I tried to make an effort to explain it and found I couldn't do it logically. Couldn't do it with any logic. All because I wasn't insane or hadn't shown any signs of insanity at that time. I wasn't any of the other things that I could have been without it being factual.
So how far away from it did you walk, thinking you were going to go back to the base before you changed your mind and you started to come back? Because if it thought you were leaving, it might have decided to take off. And
Well,
go away.
it was fast enough, so it was just 2 or 3 steps. I mean, I was
you
easily
quickly
stopped.
made your decision.
Yeah.
I see.
I didn't take a step after the fact hit me of the vision hit me of what would happen if I did go back. That only took a couple of seconds to appreciate.
Okay.
So I came
So
back
then
and
you
I thought, well, I'll just pretend it's real and act as if it's real and let the rest take care of itself.
The ordinary
And
human response.
I remember
is to touch it.
something as though someone was saying, well, that was a very wise decision.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure of that.
Oh, so they're reading your mind at this point.
Oh, yeah, they had been for some time.
Yeah. And you weren't
And
aware.
injecting suggestions ever since I left the
Okay.
first
Guiding
trail
you to
out
go
on
down
this
that road,
side
no
trail,
doubt. Probably.
I didn't realize it until I heard. I said, well, since this is... I disagreed with something they had said, that someone had said. And I said, well, after all, it doesn't make any difference since I'm just here by accident. Why, it doesn't make any difference. And the voice replied, if you think this is accident, you greatly underestimate our own technology.
Oh, yeah.
And then it added, says, maybe you don't know who advised you to take the later bus, after the bus had left, and so missed the bus. Maybe you don't realize what this and what that. And I began to realize that I had been under direction all the time ever since I left the base.
All right. So now you did want to tactually sense this thing by touching it, and they hadn't warned you until after you had already touched it.
No, until it looked like I was going to touch it too long.
Yeah.
And they said, you know, you can touch it a minute or two and not notice it. Actually, I did. I had enlarged kidneys for quite a while after that, and the doctor there treated me and asked me about it, and I didn't tell him anything about the actual thing because I knew he wouldn't believe it anyhow. But he never did figure out what caused the kidney to swell up.
I see.
I suffered from enlarged kidneys for several months after that.
And that's a...
I can see that it would have been fatal if I'd continued to fiddle around with it for very long.
When you first touched it with the finger, and can you explain just how that felt to you?
Well, it just felt smooth. It felt like something very, very, very smooth. I wasn't able to produce any friction between my fingers and the craft. They just slid around as though they were on ice or on water or something. It was very
It was
fine.
even slicker than anything you've ever touched before.
Slicker than anything I'd ever touched because I couldn't produce any pressure, any resistance. My hand slid over the object without any resistance at all. And I couldn't explain that by anything I knew.
Yes.
So that began one of the things that I needed an explanation on.
And then you felt like, well, I'll put more than a finger on here. I'll put my whole
Yeah, I
hand.
put my whole hand on
Or
it.
your arm on it. And that's
Then it felt like there was a circle between my fingers and my hand, as though
a little tingle of some sort?
yeah, a little tingle, fairly strong tingle. Stronger than when just my finger was down.
Like a small electrical shock or something? Then it began to appear dangerous when you felt that. And then something told you to back off from this thing, didn't it?
Yeah.
So
But in that touch of hell, pal, it's still hot. Now, that was the most ridiculous thing. Had I been writing fiction, that's the last thing in the world I would have put down. If something did happen, I didn't have any choice to put what to put down. I just put it down. People laughed at it for years. Most ridiculous, most Hollywoodian sounding thing that could be. So why would I put it down if it didn't happen?
Yes.
I'd gladly have left it out.
It's not your choice of words normally.
No, but it was the words that were spoken.
Mm-hmm. And that they had our English down to the point where it's almost like a saying slang,
Yeah.
and they had our language down.
Well, the
enough
word
to use it.
slang words used, that's the first thing that attracted my attention, that someone was speaking who didn't know the difference between slang and correct English.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And they were spoken just as naturally and just as normally as though they were good English.
Yes. Didn't have any accent to it?
And not that so, I didn't detect any at the time.
Mm-hmm.
There may have been a slight accent, but I wouldn't have noticed it. But I didn't notice any. Just the difference between us and the English language is the fact that slang words were used in there without any noticeable difference.
Mm-hmm.
That the person using them didn't know the difference between the slang words and the regular words. Having heard them both in the same context, but he didn't realize there was a difference.
All right. So you then backed off because when you heard the word hot, you knew that your hand hadn't sensed anything.
No. So I thought the hot referred to radioactivity.
And it turned out that's probably the case with the enlarged distance.
Well, it was a case of the results would have been.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then how far did you jump back, or just gradually back?
I
off?
jumped back. I got my heels tangled up in some brush and spilled off on my back in the brush and the sand. And I arose feeling very ridiculous.
Could you get any ESP laughter out of that?
Well, I couldn't tell then. I was so disturbed by various things that were happening. I was getting up and I was thinking, well, what can I think of me? I mean, whenever we think of a meeting between representatives of variously separated peoples and so forth, we always connect the subject with great pomp and ceremony, the bugles blow and so forth. And finally the two come together and meet, and I was lying on my back with my head in the sand and my feet in the ground, representing the people of Earth. And that's when I really began to think this must be an extraterrestrial of some kind, and it must be observing me. And if it is, it's probably observing a ridiculousness of the human race. And I'm giving it good reason to feel that way, so I got up and brushed myself off as well as I could and brushed a couple of burrs out of my chest and brushed my hair out. And again I thought, gee, I wish I was somewhere else. Anyhow, I wasn't somewhere else, and so I had to deal with the situation as it was. Anyhow, I just kept on pretending that I believed it, and almost did, just because I couldn't think of any other explanation that fit the...
Well, you've already touched it, so you knew it was something tangible. Even though it was slick, it's still something that you could...
Yeah, but it was slick beyond anything I'd ever felt. There was never a mirror that was as...
Was there anything like ozone smells around there or anything?
I didn't notice it. There may have been some ozone effect around, but I didn't notice it at the time. There were a number of things that were being forced on my consciousness, and they took precedence over the other things that didn't. At least they did afterwards. I couldn't remember. I was asked a dozen times about ozone. And while there probably was some ozone, I don't really know anything that would force her to be. It would say, well, it's necessary for her to be. So I really can't say whether it was or not.
There was no sound at all.
No sound that I could hear. Until the door was open for me to enter.
Now it's sitting on a boondock, so did it relocate to open the door underneath?
Well, I walked around I walked completely around the gadget looking for an entrance. And I couldn't see any sign of an entrance. Of course, there was plenty of room for an entrance here. But I couldn't find any until it was open. I mean, there was a click, just one click. It could have been something like a one-arm relay or a solenoid. But I couldn't tell which it was. It was just a clicking. This door slid back into the craft a little bit, a couple of inches, and then slid open. And I could see that the walls of this craft were about 6 inches thick.
Oh, because of the depth of the...
Well, and there was a slot in there into which this door rolled.
Yes.
And it was only about an inch thick.
Was it a continuous material, or was it like I-beam webbing?
Well, I didn't have a chance to examine it for these things. It just slid back, and I was concerned with the entrance that was appearing before me.
And there was light now for the first time.
It slid into the slot, yeah. Well, there wasn't. The light came on as the door opened. There was a single light in the back. It looked like something like a film projector, except it was a steady light, just a small amount of light. It wasn't a hard beam.
It wasn't blinding then?
It wasn't, no.
Did it have some color?
I didn't see any color. The door opened this door slid back in, the light came on, and there was just enough light to see comfortably as this inside was all polished, like polished stainless steel. And the little light that was produced by this thing, it would prove to be ample to see what you were doing, at least. And there were 4 chairs, 4 seats. You can't call them chairs, there were 4 seats.
But there's nobody else in there.
I know, there was no one else in it.
Yeah.
And I stepped in up, and I heard a click, and I whirled around, and the door was just closing, but it was closing too fast for me.
Exit.
I had an automatic impulse to dive out of the door.
Yeah, but you couldn't dive through a door that's closed.
I couldn't dive fast enough. It was very close.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'm pinned in here now. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. If they're going to fry me for dinner, why they're going to fry me for dinner. So anyhow, I took the first seat that I came to, which was just opposite the door.
Could you, when you were inside, could you feel the texture of the floor through your shoes? Was it
no, it was metallic. It appeared to be metallic. It was
like walking on the bulkhead of a ship then?
Yeah, just about like watching. And so I took the first seat I came to, and I was told I didn't have to. I grabbed the little side rails on the chair, braced myself for the sudden jolt of the takeoff. I was told I didn't have to worry. I wouldn't even feel the takeoff. Which was true, because when he said, well, here we go, we're now going to take off, and all I could see was that the ground in front of the craft suddenly started drawing together, as it would if the outfit were ready. But I felt I didn't feel any field of motion at all.
No,
I just saw
see out of the craft at this point.
Yeah, I could see out at this point, because the doorway became, again, you'll find it all in here.
It's transparent.
Yeah, I forget once in a while because
could you see out?
I could see out. Yeah, I was looking for him because he wasn't in there anyhow, but I didn't realize that at that time.
Yeah.
But I didn't look around because it was mentioned aloud that we would now take off. All this, of course, is in the book. I'm repeating everything that's in the book, but it's in there. Anyhow, the fact that I grasped I was told that the trip would be to New York and back, and I was thinking about the thousands of miles that this would cover in 30 minutes.
You were really given an option of where you wanted to go.
In 30 minutes, yeah, I was asked where I wanted to go, and I chose it myself, but I didn't choose I was supposed to make it 30 minutes, round trip in 30 minutes, and I was somewhat, well, not exactly frightened, but concerned at that ideal speed, because that was 1,000 miles an hour, and today that wouldn't mean anything. We have outfits that start out for the moon at faster speeds than that.
Yes.
That is now a ridiculously slow speed. If we had a rocket that wouldn't make any more speed than that, we'd junk it and start working toward fast. But the funny thing was, that was the thing that was argued more against the reality of the thing. People said 1,000 miles an hour, gee, nothing can go that fast.
We hadn't even broke the sound
And while they were
barrier
still
yet.
arguing about it, we beat that speed quite a bit ourselves.
Yes. Right. At that point, we hadn't even broke the sound barrier. Then.
No, there still
we
was,
thought that
still
was
was
a
a barrier.
possibility. We couldn't go beyond that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was quite an argument whether you could ever beat the sound barrier or not. Quite a few that argued one way or the other.
Now, you felt no elevator effect when this thing began to...
No, I felt no feeling at all. I just saw the ground dropping away in front of the craft.
I see.
And pretty soon I could see the lights. We were behind a small hill between us and White Sands Proving Ground. It only took about a second or so before we could see the lights of White Sands. And shortly after that, we could see the lights from the hill that you come over into White Sands from Las Cruces. You could then see the lights of Las Cruces and El Paso. And you could see the lights into the base in El Paso. And I could pinpoint it all in my mind. This is this, and this is this, and this is this. So I was checking reality at the time I was doing it because it was showing everything as it actually was.
Yeah, because you had the mountains that would block some of the view until you got above the mountains and exposed, like Biggs Air Force Base in El Paso.
It only took about 3 or 4 seconds before I could see the hills and over the hills and into El Paso and into Las Cruces.
And no doubt, if it was heading for New York,
the craft was rotating. The craft was allowed to rotate till it was pointed toward till it was.
Oh, so there's actually a front to it, according to the way the chairs are fixed.
Yeah, the front was the same as the door. See, the door that I came in was below the hemisphere. The thing I was looking through was just above the hemisphere.
Oh, okay. So you had a proportion of the craft more. All right. So that's interesting that they have a front and a back then in that way.
No, they do. You can't tell it from the outside.
from the outside,
The
no.
outside.
All right. And then as you're going along, about what altitude do you think they might have been flying?
Well, they were doing vertically. They were doing almost vertically for the first 7 or 8 seconds. They were doing almost vertically.
Mm-hmm.
And they reached it, and they said, well, we can now apply a certain amount of forward motion. And that's when the first motion was, when they were up probably 7, 8 miles.
No, that's quite a
They
way
began
up.
first.
Yeah.
Well, they wanted to get high enough so they didn't have to depend too much on their ray on the craft to keep resistance down. They said we use this when it's necessary to travel at high speeds through an atmosphere. We use this.
That shielding,
That's the shielding,
couple
yeah.
of microns on the
Yeah,
outside,
mhm.
so it wouldn't heat.
Yeah, they said this creates, if we use it, it creates a laminar flow. The bottom current of air is moving relatively slowly, leaving the next layer behind and this layer behind. So there's a straight laminar flow through there that prevents heating effects from the air. It doesn't heat up much
I see. Mm-hmm.
because of the laminar nature of the flow.
All right.
And that made good sense to me because we were trying for that in rockets at the time, trying for a way to produce laminar flow as the rocket went up. Because it does knock out 90% of the forward speed and consequently resistance.
Yeah. Yeah.
If the one layer is traveling relatively slow and the next layer is traveling a little faster and the next layer is traveling a little faster, they're sliding on each other. Each layer is sliding on the one above it, so there's not really much resistance, it's just sliding friction.
All right. Now, you can see out this thing all the trip, so you'll see various cities going by the lights, if you could recognize
Yeah,
them.
yeah, they were named to me to prove that they knew what they were.
Oh, I see.
They knew more about our geography than we did, really.
Yeah.
But they named the cities as we went over them.
Of course, that's their viewpoint normally, it's not ours.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And so the New York City was chosen because that's a recognizable city.
Yeah, it's recognized because of the 5 boroughs and because of the fact that I had come in many times to New York by air from the south, not at that altitude, but at an altitude less than that, so they were even easier to recognize.
And the trip there, although it sounds like it's going to be an hour's trip back and forth, or a half hour, did it take all that time to get there, or did more of the trip being there than traveling there?
Well, there was a circle. It described a circle. The craft described a circle coming in from the north and on the south, and then back to east again, and back.
Okay, so it didn't do a straight line. It kind of did Earth curvature.
Well, it did a straight line until it came quite close to New York, and then swung around. And going around New York, it kept the center of the viewing screen pointed toward the center of the city. So it looked like the city was revolving in front of it. That's all.
And nobody in New York could see you because it was an absolutely dark craft. So
no, it was a dark
one's
craft.
gonna
It
have
was a
UFO
dark craft,
sighting.
and it was traveling still at about 6, 7 miles.
And going fast as it was,
Yeah.
nobody could see it anyway. Yeah. And so you just circled New York and then came right on back. You didn't
Came
stay
back.
there and observe.
No, it just continued circle and never paused for anything.
I see. And you didn't suggest that you might want to go somewhere else besides that? I mean,
No, I wasn't really in the point of suggesting anything. I think I was lucky if I got back alive.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't in any position
You were
to
anxious to
suggest
get back down on terra firma.
I was glad to get back.
Yes. And then when you returned, and it just went straight down again.
Well,
Did it
slowed
swing at an
down
angle?
good.
Slowed down. All right. And then, of course, we were remarking earlier about the accuracy if we
Yeah,
were around the
accuracy.
same place.
It was obviously coming back on some record that had been made going. I mean, it was traveling the record back, which was guiding it, and that was accurate enough to bring it within 3 feet of takeoff point.
And they'd still have to adjust for Earth's rotation. in
Yeah.
that. So this is pretty high
Yeah,
technology.
there's a lot of things you'd have to adjust to. Well, we do adjust to all these things now. We do send out things that go out and come back just like that, but not only that accurate. I mean, we're still about 40 years off that accuracy.
Yeah. There was no mention made during these times of other planets, like maybe this craft is based on the moon, or is it based at the base here on this planet?
No, there wasn't any. This was particularly a travel craft. I mean, it was used to transport people from one place to another. It didn't pause very long or very often.
It usually resided in the side of the hull of some larger craft.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they might not have been from a planet at all. They could have just been from out of space.
I don't think Alon had ever set foot on a planet before. He didn't say that, but I mean, I deduced it from other things that were said.
Because you had to really acclimate him to what the ways were here. And we've got some strange ways. You must have had a hard time explaining a few things.
Well, there's a lot of things I had a hard time explaining.
Logic too good, some of the things.
Fortunately, he had a good understanding, so he could grasp a lot of things that I couldn't have grasped if I'd been in his position.
Yes.
He was able to explain things to him fairly easily. He didn't require a great deal of explanation.
Well, he'd been studying it, no doubt. But when you study out of books like he's doing, or whatever method they have, you're still going to miss some of the fine points.
Oh, yeah.
And that you're an expert in, because a third-dimensional resident has certainly got it over somebody who's coming out of probably fourth dimension and trying on third. Now, this whole experience was a physical third-dimensional experience. It wasn't out of body or anything.
No,
like
it was certainly not out of body because I was sore in various places afterwards. But there was plenty of evidence. I went back. I got up early the next morning, hiked back to the same place to see if I could see any evidence that it was real. And I found the very place where the craft landed and crushed the brush. Of course, nobody else would have believed that that was a spaceship landing. But I found it. It satisfied me. And
your footprints.
I was satisfied that it was just as real as anything I know can be real.
Yes. Too bad they didn't give you some little thing to bring back, but...
Well, it wouldn't. I asked myself that, and many other people have asked me that. There is nothing, I realized after thinking after, there's nothing they could have given me.
Except a chair. You brought one of those chairs out of there. That's about the only thing.
Well, even so, chairs we make by the thousands on Earth.
Sure, and they were just like one of our chairs.
Well, they weren't just like one, but they were just like one that we could build. We could make one. And make it just like that, and no one would know the difference. And no matter what they made, there are all kinds of things they could have made that were different from anything here. In fact, those things were made. I've got one of them here right home somewhere right now. It's made of, there are elements in it that don't exist in anything else that we have. And yet we could have made one here. I could have made one here.
I see, yeah.
We know the elements. We know what the elements are. We know how to combine them.
See, they give Billy Meyer a piece of metal that we couldn't make here even if we tried.
Well, I don't know.
The method that the interior, under a microscope, you can see there's no way of melting and laminating and putting together the elements in that fashion with our technology.
Yeah, well, I have a piece that isn't laminated. It's all solids, all solid pieces, including gold and diamonds and a few other things. Most of the elements, it is actually a token, so I hear, of an extraterrestrial visitor. It doesn't say so on it, but it is different from anything. I've never found anyone that made one like it yet.
It's odd that they would have a money, because a lot of the planets just don't do that. They realize that's a mistake.
Well, these could have been gathered on Earth. I mean,
maybe future money or something.
The trouble is, anything that you produce here could have been made here. And it doesn't really prove anything. It's a question of proof, and I've written many technological papers on the problem of proof, how you're going to prove something. And you can't prove it if it was made here on Earth. You can't prove it because it's familiar. It has familiarities of everything that is made here, and is recognizable as being made on Earth. But, so it's very poor proof. It's what Jesus of Nazareth was pointing out to doubting Thomas. He said, "You have seen, so you believe." And blessed are those who believe for other reasons than that. That's the poorest proof there is, because anyone can duplicate it if he's got a little brains.
Well, Thomas had to touch him.
He says, if I were a fake and I wanted to produce a wound in my side, I could easily have had it done.
Sure, the stigmata, other people do it all the time.
Anyhow, he said, my real proof is in the things that I say and things that I do and so forth. And blessed is he who believes without having seen. I mean, he didn't say believe. Actually, the word that he used, correctly translated, means smarter. Who is smarter, knowingly believes without seeing, but finds better proof, because there is better proof than that. The proof of it really now is that we have millions of people that go to church every Sunday to listen to what he said. We don't bother doing the things he said he invited us to do yet.
No, they would never do that.
No.
Never.
But anyhow, we go to church to listen to him, and
And we hope that it's what he says,
Yeah.
because the translations down the way have been altered.
Yeah, I know.
We've really begun to suspect it, you know.
Yeah.
But someday we'll produce a video of the past. Somebody will
Yeah.
travel in time, and we'll come back with what he really said.
Yeah.
Or else ask him, because he's still roaming around. I mean, why dwell on what he used to say? If he's standing there in front of you, ask him a new question. Yeah. All right. Now, this person, Alan, does communicate with other beings, no doubt, and works with them.
Probably, yes.
Has he ever indicated that he does so to you?
Oh, it was once said that he had to contact someone. Now, I don't know whether it was an Earthian or an alien. I didn't ask him. The less I know about him, the less I have to tell anybody else.
Yeah.
The less I can tell anybody else, because I don't know. I'm not one of those who's afraid to say I don't know, because there's a great deal I don't know.
Oh, yeah. That's for sure. We're all learning. But he's probably not the only one of his kind. There's probably thousands, if not millions, of this sort of being down here working with this planet.
Well, they better work pretty hard, because we're working equally hard to destroy it.
Yeah, we sure are. But you know, their methods of destruction they're taking the toys away from them. I think it's only imaginary that they think they can have a nuclear war. I don't think it's possible, because the ETs are preventing
The
that.
test will come very shortly, I'm afraid.
Yeah, yes. It's almost like the Bible prophecy, except the Russians are not marching towards Israel at this point.
No.
That's different right there.
Israel is marching towards Russia, if anything.
Well,
Israel is continuing to declare that they're on our side.
yeah,
They haven't proved it yet. They haven't done anything to prove it, but...
just take our aid. Yeah. And, of course, they better keep us as an ally, or the rest of the Arabs will be on them in short order.
Yeah.
But the other Arabs, giving them time, they'll fight, they'll reduce each other to a lesser level. I wonder why we're stepping in there to have a hand in that. Russia's not. Isn't that interesting how they haven't taken sides one way or the other?
No, well, they have, technically, they've taken sides with us, because they've agreed to send forces to bolster ours. If they do, they'll be fighting side by side, shoulder to shoulder.
That'll be new.
And if they start to read a little history, they recognize that we've saved their lives on several occasions.
Sure. Yeah, we give them the armaments to keep Hitler at bay.
Yeah, and not only armaments, we've given them our banknote printing devices to print their own banknotes.
How about that?
And during the war, when they printed our banknotes, they just handed them out to soldiers. Nobody knew what the value of these were, and they passed out so many 5s or so many 10s or so many 20s without the slightest knowledge of what the 5 or 10 or 20 meant. The soldier would go to spend them, and he'd hand out the 20s just as easily as he'd hand out 1s. He'd hand out the same number, and we were the ones that had to pay it all back after.
Yes. You wonder how we get into debt, huh? Yes. Or if the money that we hand out to each other has any value at all. Probably doesn't, really.
Well, it doesn't have any real value, certainly. I mean, the interesting thing was here a couple of years ago, the bank foreclosed a mortgage on a farmer, and the gal who runs the counter federal business there persuaded the court that that mortgage he had signed didn't mean anything, because he didn't get anything for it, that the money wasn't worth anything, it had no basic value, and the court agreed with him and canceled the mortgage.
How about that?
The judge who did it died 2 weeks later.
Ah, yes. Yeah. Well, that's what he gets, isn't it?
But nobody contested this thing. They were afraid it would be held by some other judge, and then everybody would hold it. And
sure, they could use this in every case.
Yeah.
Sure. That's dangerous, isn't it?
Sure. It's dangerous enough to kill the judge who decided it.
Sure, and make sure they all know, the other judges know. Look what happens if you decide that way.
Yeah. But they didn't contest it at all. They just canceled the mortgage. But the guy who canceled it for him died 2 weeks afterwards.
Well, I think we've covered the tactual experiences of the trip. And what did the chair feel like you were sitting in? What did it give to your
Well,
life?
it was yes, it was a good deal like this chair, only it was plastic all over on all points as far as you could tell. It was rigid, fairly rigid, but padded as though it were molded directly onto a frame. So it wasn't put on afterwards. It was molded directly onto a metal frame, and the metal frame was mounted in the craft. That's as good as I can describe it. It did feel comfortable enough. It wasn't shaped quite the same way as ours, but it would be shaped, I think it was shaped in a position or in a condition more like what we would do ourselves if we were specializing on a certain type of person.
And there were 4 there, so the craft is...
On the other hand, you could have set a seal in one of these things, and I'm sure he'd been fairly safe, fairly pleasant, fairly comfortable.
Yes, so any living form could have probably...
Yeah.
And the atmosphere was conducive to ours, so they probably were using ours, a chunk of it at the time. Yeah, all right.
In any event, they had the availability of using ours if they were in our atmosphere. In other words, they could take on and discharge used air.
Sure, and then take
if they needed to.
Yeah, so you actually suffered some health problems afterwards, so they didn't improve your health.
No, I didn't notice any improvement. I started going to a doctor for enlarged kidneys.
So there was really a decrease.
A couple of weeks afterwards, so there was a decrease, and I can see what he meant by if you had kept up this toying with this thing long enough, it would have killed you.
Yes.
In fact, the way he put it was a little brusquer than that. I chided him a little bit for using such abrupt language, and he says, well, you're about to kill yourself, and I just didn't have time to diddle with controls. And those are the words he used. I mean, they're burned in my mind. You diddle with controls. And he says, I didn't have time to diddle with controls. So I had to speak sharply in order to get you to jump away, which you did very nicely.
Yes. Well, it sounds like they're a good judge of human psychology. You know how to make you react quickly to something. I bet they'd studied you quite a time before. They knew you
probably.
Quite well.
I don't doubt that they did. They were very careful about everything else, and they'd come a long ways to do this job, so they were not going to waste a chance by being careless of who they picked up.
Have you ever considered the possibility that you might be on a mission here, too, from elsewhere?
Interestingly enough, you'll get so many questions in the direct answer that the book gives, because he asked me, he said, if the people of your world understood the reason for this visit, and it gave them a choice, and it described the choice, which choice do you think they'd make? And I said, there's no doubt whatever which choice they would make if they knew the odds between which they're choosing. And he says, precisely. He says, that's why I'm here, and that's why you're here. So I said, all these questions are answered in this book here. If you read the book carefully. And as fast as you come to mind a question, it came to my mind. I asked it and got almost every case got an answer that I could understand. But he didn't say you were born to this job or anything. He just said, that's why I'm here, and that's why you're here.
Okay, that's great. Well, at this point, I think we can take a break, and maybe it's lunchtime.
Maybe it is.
Time goes.
Who knows what the lunchtime is in space?
That's right.
No, he doesn't know. If there's anything I can do, I'll be called up. I mean, if the shooting starts and there's anything I can do, so far I'm doing everything I can to stop it, at the expense of some little amount. But every time the thing heats up, I get another 1,000 or 2 copies of the mushroom school, and send them around to remind people of what happens if you do have they say if nuclear weapons start to break around the world, and they stop, and they'll accelerate faster than anybody can stop them. I'll get you a copy of that poem when I get home. I've got 100 or so of that. And I'm starting to send them out again. I thought it looked like we were just about able to dispense with anything like that.
Peace was breaking.
And I had them put away because it looked like peace was breaking out.
And
suddenly we got to use them all over again. So
you didn't send it back to the Arabs, no doubt.
No, I should have. That was the big error. I don't know whether they would have read them or not. I don't know if they could have read them. Because I don't write Arabic, and I don't write Arabic very well. And they don't write English.
They would have regarded it as propaganda probably or something. Because they're not interested in reason at times, it would seem. Well, okay, I guess we've got our take here.
I did write a certain gentleman, though, and give him a copy of it. Send him a copy of it. gentleman you all know, but I wouldn't think that we would bother ever sending him a copy.
Mm-hmm.
We did send him to a copy, and he replied very generously, this is the most knowledgeable thing I ever saw.
Okay.
And he says, this I could buy.
Yeah.
I buy this. This I could buy. The rest is all nonsense. But I can buy this. And who do you suppose it was?
Well, I would hope it would be Bush.
No, think of the last, I haven't been in contact with Bush a long time ago.
Well,
But I don't tell him that, but I told this brother to read it again. After he sits down, now read it again. Now what do you think? And what do you think he wrote back? Inviting me to come to the country involved.
that would be Russia versus Gorbachev?
No?
No.
Worse than that.
Worse than that. Okay.
Much worse than that.
Well, in that case, like the Persian Shah.
Well, no, this is before the Persian Shahs began to become obstreperous.
China?
No.
Well, because that's pretty bad.
Well,
Who is the worst person you can think of?
no,
Who
Khomeini.
wrote us back, invited my wife and I to visit the country.
What
at their
about
expense.
Castro?
No, worse than that.
Must be in South America.
You see, we don't even remember our
I think
enemies,
of worse ones. Yeah.
especially the worst ones. We forget them as fast as we can.
It's not the Shah. Well,
No, this is a gentleman who has threatened the world many times, and we don't pay much attention to him.
Gaddafi?
Gaddafi.
Oh, okay.
Mhm. That gentleman wrote and replied, thanked us, invited us to come and visit him, be his guests for a while, and said this was the most logical thing he had ever heard. He could buy this. He couldn't buy any of the crap that the other people are printing. But this he could buy.
Good.
Muammar Gaddafi.
He hasn't done as much trouble here.
No, well, he told us in his writing to us, he said, people
Take it on.
blame me for a lot of things I don't do. He says, but I can't prove I didn't do them, so I might as well accept the guff.
And you just send these to various people, hoping that they'll read them and maybe...
He invited us to come and visit him, but I never went because I'm not sure what the menu is for their hostages.
Well, you might be a hostage, yeah.
So, since I might very well be a hostage if I went over there, I didn't go.
Yeah.
If I was sure I could have done some good with him, I would have gone. And I think maybe I could, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, he's a little quieter now than he used to be.
Yeah.
About when was this when you sent it to him?
Well, he's clearly been outdone by a few others in creating mischief, and he knows it, so he's going to rest, relax, and just take the benefit.
I see. Yeah.
If they want to blame him for it, well, they can blame him for it. He doesn't care. But
Except they bomb him when something else happens somewhere else. They pick on him.
yeah, they bombed him and killed his
Indeed.
people, anyhow.
One of his relatives, little kid.
Yeah.
And that's probably the response that they were thinking for the current problem. If they could knock that leader off immediately, that would probably, take the whole fire out of the whole situation. But maybe there's a good chance that this is a distraction to keep our attention off of something else that's more important right now. And what other things are more important? Is it the Bush's relative in the court trials and stuff lately, or is it something maybe earth-threatening, such as an ET invasion or a battle going on between the American government and some of the Greys, which has been going on lately? Because it was only about a year ago that we shot down one of their craft over South Africa.
Yeah.
We instructed the South Africans to shoot it down, and then went over there and retrieved it and brought it back to Wright-Patterson ourselves. So that was an act of war, if there was ever one. So we could be having a shooting war with the Greys right now.
We have a shooting war, we just don't realize it.
Yeah.
We are shooting every once in a while.
Yeah. And that could be heating up now and then trying to keep us from noticing that.
We fired 6 shots over the bow and stern of, after disclaiming all oil shipments, saying you can't have that oil, we declined. And after the pipelines were presumably shut down, there were 2 tankers started out, and they both reached their port, and they're both lying in the port, both full of oil. We have fired 6 shots over their bow and stern and ordered them to stop, which they completely ignored, and went on to the destination. Now, it doesn't do any good whatever to call a black market on anything, or to call a boycott of anything if you don't enforce it.
Yes.
The very first ships that went through there,
They got away with it.
untouched, got away with it.
Sure.
Now all the other ships there are will be starting out, and we'll have to shoot them all.
Yeah.
They'll all be starting out.
They were test cases originally.
Yeah.
Now they got
Yeah.
this one ship that's headed toward Yemen. It's got
Yeah.
another day or
Yeah.
so to go before it
Mhm.
gets there.
Yeah.
And Bush has indicated that ship's not going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he said that on TV.
We'll see. I mean, the only thing to say, we'll see. If we do see that, we may see something else too.
Yeah.
We may see the other side open fire, and if they do, we can look for the beginning of Armageddon. They'll shoot back, and we'll shoot back, and they'll shoot back, and constantly using tougher weapons, until we're using full nuclear weapons, and they've wiped out the one country off the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Some weapons will survive. Some toughies will survive to fire them, and pretty soon will be wiped off the face. Yeah. But there will still be lots of nuclear weapons around for people to exchange with each other,
Mm-hmm.
and thereby bring about the demise of civilization, whatever you think about it. It isn't worth much, but it's all we've got now,
Yeah.
civilization.
Well, I suspect we'll have intercedents in the
Yeah.
form of
Mhm.
protective
Yeah.
space brothers.
Well, that's all we've got to hope for. I mean, there's a poem in here that talks about wishing for rain, it's called wildfire, but it's wishing for rain, and that's what we're wishing for right now. And we need, since there are no clouds in the sky, we'll have to wish with all our might.
Yes, that's right. Well, the UFOs are up there, we know that.
Mhm.
And we know that they've prevented war in the past,
Yeah.
because there's twice that Russia's tried to launch at us, and we tried
Yeah.
to launch at them once.
Yep.
And it didn't work.
Nope.
And so I think this is a fantasy. I think nuclear war is a fantasy. It can't
Mhm.
happen, because they'll be prevented by beings beyond us.
Well, there's certainly a strong effort by beings beyond us to bring us to our senses in time. Whether they'll succeed or not isn't necessarily definite yet, because there are few of them and there are many of the ones that want to create the war. They may be able to hold us back from it, I don't know. I hope they do,
Yeah, that's what we can
because it's the only hope that civilization's got left.
Mm-hmm. We've known that we could never control the Middle East and the Arabs, because
Yeah.
we can't control their way of thinking.
You know.
They're too fanatically committed to what they feel is,
Mm.
I guess, revenge more than anything
Yeah.
else. They hate anything
Mm.
of Western world. They don't seem to pick on the other Easterners too much.
No, they come to blows once in a while, but that's just a natural thing with them.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't get along, I don't think, without fighting every 10 years.
In fact, the Iraqis have been fighting since most of those soldiers
Yeah.
that can never remember.
Oh, yeah.
They don't know anything else.
Mhm.
So they're...
Well, they were fighting before most of them were born. They don't know what they're fighting about, but they got to fight about something.
Mm-hmm. And what good's a standing army if it's not in use?
Mhm.
They're expensive.
Now,
You're
pretty
gonna
soon the standing army will be the lying down army, and
Yes,
they'll be
that's
throwing
right.
dirt on them.
That's what I hated to see, is to move our
Yeah.
standing troops into that area,
Mhm.
because if we kept them aboard ships and out of there and just used jets
Yeah,
to come in and
yeah.
things, we won't lose those standing troops.
No.
So I thought that was like sacrifice, practically,
Mhm.
putting them in that position. And maybe that's what they are. Maybe they're a pawn.
Maybe.
And if you take the pawn, then the thing escalates from there.
Mhm.
So it sounds like they're the sacrifice in that way. Well, okay.
Mhm.